Good morning, everyone. Nice to see you all. Nice to see some good old friends that I've known for a long time. And every time I come to Sri Lanka, I see some of these old friends again, which is marvelous. So great to be here. And one of the nice things about coming to Sri Lanka, if you are living in the Western world, is that here you feel like you belong. In the Western world, you never feel like you belong, but here you kind of belong as a monk. And that's kind of very relaxing and nice and very easy in many ways. So thank you for your kind welcome, and thank you for inviting me to come to this beautiful country once again. So I'm not going to say much more about those kind of things. I'm just going to dive straight into what this is about. And the idea, of course, with what we are doing here is that we're going to do a meditation retreat. And combined with the meditation, we're going to look at some of the core suttas of the Buddha. And in particular, to see how the Buddha taught meditation, but also a little bit more broadly about the things that affect the meditation practice. Meditation is never done in isolation. Meditation is done as part of a larger system. You can call that system the Noble Eightfold Path, you can call it the Four Noble Truths, or whatever, but it's part of a larger system. And unless you understand that larger system, you can't really understand how the meditation works. So that is kind of the basic idea behind these suttas. And you will notice that when you look at the suttas, they are kind of divided into two halves. And the first half of the suttas are about what you might call meditation. You have the Anapanasati Sutta, the mindfulness of breathing. You have the Upakilesa Sutta, which is all about how to get the mind into samadhi. There is the Mahanama Sutta, which is about how to the joy in the meditation. So all of these things are technical difficulties. There is a saying in Thai called high tech, high tuk. Tuk is the Pali Thai word for dukkha. High tech, high dukkha. That's kind of there's some truth to that. So the idea then is that the first half of the retreat, roughly, I don't know exactly how it's going to work out, is about meditation proper. How to develop the mind, how to make it peaceful, how to give rise to the appropriate kind of qualities that actually promote meditation. And then the second half is going to be more about some of the supporting factors. And these supporting factors, they're often called the development of sanya in the suttas. If you look at the Anguttara Nikaya, the Anguttara Nikaya is all about, has a lot of suttas on sanya, how to develop your perception, how to see the world in such a way that it supports the meditation practice. And so these things often go together, and very often in the Buddhist world we talk about samatha and vipassana. And for me, the idea of developing perception is actually a very important part of what you might call vipassana practice. Because it is about seeing the world in the right way. And of course, that is exactly what vipassana, seeing clearly. Some people call it insight, but I prefer seeing clearly. That's exactly what it is about. These are kind of the two halves, if you wish, of this retreat, and we're going to delve into this in quite a bit of detail, and there will be lots of opportunities for you to ask questions or to discuss with me and to disagree with me. If you disagree with me, that's fine. You're very welcome to disagree with me. I promise not to get upset. If I get upset, I'll keep it inside. You won't be able to see if I get upset. So that's kind of a good idea, good news. But it's nice to have a good discussion. And sometimes by discussing a bit, you learn much more than just by having a one-way communication, from a teacher to a listener. So it's nice to have that opportunity to discuss a little bit. So that is the outline of what this retreat is about. And if you don't like that outline, I'm not going to change it anyway, so you better try to like it and so see what happens. So that's kind of the way it's going to work out. So for this morning, I'm going to talk to some very basic ideas about meditation practice itself. And then this afternoon we're going to start talking about the Anapanasati Sutta. But this morning, just some basic ideas, just to get you started in your meditation practice. Some overall views about how meditation actually is supposed to work. And one of the kind of my starting points very often when I teach meditation is to start what I learned from my teacher. Well, my teacher is, of course, the Buddha, really, but the secondary teacher is Ajahn Brahm. Yeah? I've been living with Ajahn Brahm for very close to 30 years. Yeah? Some people say it's too long, but I think it's just right, actually. But anyway, so almost 30 years Ajahn Brahm has been very important, very formative in the way that I think about meditation. And of course Ajahn Brahm from the very beginning, and this was one of the things that gave me confidence in the way Ajahn Brahm taught. He said, read the suttas. He said, understand the word of the Buddha. The Buddha is ultimately your teacher. It is from the Buddha you should take your teachings. And if what I say aligns with the Buddha, good. If it doesn't, well then you can ask questions to find out if there is a problem. That's a beautiful way of teaching, because it means that we all have one teacher at the end of the day. It creates less confusion. It creates less problems. If we rely too much on individual teachers, if we follow what is sometimes called the Acharya Vada, the Acharya Vada is the doctrine of the teacher, it leads to too much discrepancy, too much differences, too much different views of thinking about the Dhamma, because we don't have the common source. The common source should always be the Buddha Vachana, the word of the Buddha. That is why we have the Buddha, the word of the Buddha, to unify us as Buddhists. We don't have to rely on teachers, which may sometimes be really good, but sometimes we're not sure whether they're actually teaching in the right way. And so, the thing that Ajahn Brahm taught me in the early days, and I'm sure some of those of you who have been to our monastery in Perth, maybe some of you will have received the same teaching. Ajahn Nisarana, you may very well remember some of these teachings. The first monk I met when I came to Bodhinyana Monastery was Venerable Maha Thero over here. He was the first one. I arrived in Bodhinyana Monastery on the 7th of August 1994, and you were already there at that time as staying in the monastery. So that was very nice. And so one of the things Ajahn Brahm would always say when it came to meditation practice, I would go to Ajahn Brahm and I said, oh, it's not working. Oh, it's not happening. Have you ever had that problem yourself? Oh, what's going on? It's not really kind of coming together. It's not, the mind is not really unifying properly. What's going on? Ajahn Brahm would always have one advice. And this was the one advice that we give to everyone. And that one advice was sit longer. And it was interesting because sometimes when you sit longer, you do become more peaceful. Sometimes it's a very, very useful advice. But at other times it didn't seem to make any difference. It was as if the mind wasn't ready. The mind wasn't ready to sit longer. And so that then started me on this process of trying to understand more about meditation practice. Ajahn Brahm is always a very natural meditator. I think the reason why he is named Ajahn Brahm is probably because he came straight from Brahmaloka in his past life. So samadhi kind of natural for Ajahn Brahm. And so he practiced samadhi quite easily, and for him it was just a matter of sitting down. But he underestimated the power of defilements in the mind of his disciples. And that can be very problematic. And so I started reading more in the suttas, because I realized that to really be able to understand this meditation practice, yes, you have the teacher Ajahn Brahm, but what does the Buddha have to say about this? What is his take on meditation? How does he add to the teachings I get from Ajahn Brahm? And so this is where my exploration of the sutta started. So I started learning Pali straight away. In those days, Ajahn Brahm would actually teach Pali at our monastery. So I started that straight away, and then gradually getting into the suttas, which was very, very useful. And there's still a little bit of a squishy noise in the thing over here. I don't know if it can be fixed or not, but yeah, not still a little bit there. How's that? That's better, I think. Yeah. Can you still hear everyone? Everyone okay? Yeah. Anyone cannot hear? If you cannot hear, please raise your hand. No. Okay. Everyone is all right. Okay. Good. So hopefully, if you're not okay, let us know later on. Please don't feel shy about saying anything, because it's nice to be able to feel part of this. So you start reading the suttas, and you start to become kind of quite clear what it is that you have to do to enable the meditation practice. And there's three things in particular I want to talk about this morning, which are kind of the enablers of meditation. And the first one of these things is the idea of sati. Yeah, you have to have mindfulness. Sati is fundamental to meditation practice. And in fact, when you start reading the suttas, when you start reading the various suttas about meditation, Anapanasati Sutta, Satipatthana Sutta, in particular those two suttas, they both begin with sati at the very beginning. Yeah, Parimukkhang Sating Upatapetva. Yeah, in the Anapanasati Sutta, having established mindfulness, Parimukkhang in front of you, something like that. Yeah, and this is always the beginning. In the Satipatthana Sutta, it says Satima, having mindfulness. Yeah, it's right there. And so meditation always begins with mindfulness. And if you haven't got that mindfulness, that is where the problem arises. So mindfulness is one of these factors that is so important. And so I would always encourage anyone who is part of the, if you do meditation, to do things in the right order. Make sure that you have reasonably good sati, mindfulness, before you actually start focusing on the meditation object, like the breath or whatever else it is that you do, vipassana object or whatever. Always have mindfulness first of all. And this is a very important point, because I have noticed in my life how easy it is. You sit down and you're told, okay, go watch the breath. You're not really told how to establish your mind properly first of all. And then you can waste so much time. And you can just go into states that are dull. You can go into the states of tinamida. You go into all of these problems. And you never really come out because you haven't followed the process in the right way. So very important to get this sati first of all. So what is it that supports sati? And the first thing that supports sati is basically the idea of letting go. Letting go of things. Anupadana, maybe, could be called. That is a word that occurs sometimes in the suttas. Not holding on to things. And so letting go is one of those powerful things that we need to do at the outset of the meditation. And so what I will talk about this morning is some ideas about letting go, how to learn letting go in the right way. But the other thing that is really important in meditation is the idea of enjoying it. Enjoying what you're doing. This is such an important thing. And whenever you read the suttas, whenever you read the various kinds of things that I will also be discussing here, the idea of piti, the idea of sukha, the idea of some kind of enjoyment, pamujja, all of these things are critical for the meditation to work. Every aspect of the Buddhist path is a path of enjoying what you're doing. And that enjoyment is what allows you to stay with the meditation object. It is impossible to stay with a meditation object if you don't enjoy it. If you have too much dukkha that is not really working out, the mind is going to rebel. The mind is not going to want to stay with the meditation object. So this is also another fundamental part of the whole idea of meditation. So three things then I'm going to talk about fairly briefly. The idea of letting go, mindfulness, and the idea of enjoying the meditation. Three things. And I will start with letting go, because that is letting go is that something that we need to do from the very start, and it carries on all the way to the very end of the path. All the way along, you have the idea of letting go. But from the very beginning, we need to learn how to let go in the right way. So I will discuss this first of all. So, so what do we mean by letting go? What are we letting go of? This is the first thing to kind of to recognize. And the letting go is kind of course, in the end, it is about letting go of everything, right? That's really what this path is about. But there's also a certain kind of progression to the idea of letting go. We let go of the more coarse things, then we let go of the medium things, and ultimately we let go of the really refined things at the very end of the path. So there is a progression there. But there is an underlying idea to what we're letting go of. Because mindfulness of breathing and all meditation really, in the end, is about stilling the mind, making the mind peaceful. Samatha, vipassana, two things that always go together on the Buddhist path. You cannot have one without the other. And so if you want to samatha the mind, you want to still the doing, all the activity of the mind. The activity of the mind is the opposite of stillness. So this is the samathaing of the mind. So, in other words, what we have to do is we have to let go of the doing activity of the mind. This is kind of the first point. And of course, that doing activity of the mind is very much related to the idea of craving, of desire, tanha. When you have craving, when you have desire in one way or another, then the doing follows always from the craving. Craving tells you to act. Craving demands activity. Craving tells you to move towards the object of that craving. And so craving and desire is always a fundamental problem that we're dealing with here. So when I say doing, I really also mean craving. Craving, doing always come together. And there's two main kinds of craving on the Buddhist path. And the first kind of craving is the craving that relates to the five senses, the five sense world, kama tanha. Kama tanha is all the craving that relates to seeing, hearing, touching, smelling, tasting, all of these kind of things. That's the first kind of craving, and it's a very strong kind of driving force in human beings. And it is a problem sometimes in meditation. I will talk about that briefly. And then there is bhava tanha. And bhava tanha has to do with the sense of self, who you take yourself to be. And the sense of self also often demands that we act. The sense of self will say, think about this, think about the past, think about people who upset you, think about who you are as a person, your identity, all of these kind of things. This is the other kind of tanha that can sometimes be a problem in meditation practice. So these are the two basic things that we need to overcome. And when you deal with these kind of things in the right way, you will find that your mind actually starts to become peaceful. That is really what letting go is about in the meditation part. And so all of this idea of letting go, especially the kama tanha, it begins with when we sit down. When we do our meditation practice, the very basic ideas of meditation. And one of the things that we want to do when we sit is we want to be at ease in the body. We want to be comfortable. When the Buddha starts out talking about the middle way, and you find this in the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, he always talks about the middle way, not torturing the body, not indulging the body. And that is actually where it starts, the idea of overcoming the doing and letting go of the doing of the mind. If you are at ease, if you are comfortable in the way you sit, then there is not going to be any craving in regard to the body. Because if you sit and you are uncomfortable, if you're forced to sit too long in a certain posture, for example, or you sit in a posture which is not natural to you, it is very easy for craving or desire to infect the mind, because the desire will say, oh, it's painful, why is it painful? And the mind will get obsessed with the pain in the body or whatever. So to overcome that sort of craving, the craving or the aversion towards the pain in the body, it is always good to sit, be at ease in the way you meditate. Use a chair if you have to, use a cushion or two if you prefer to use a cushion or two. Sit sometimes, do some walking meditation. At other times, do whatever it takes to be at ease. Because then you are minimizing the problem of the tanha, which drives the doing of the mind. This is why it is so important to be comfortable in the meditation practice, at least until you have proper, really powerful mindfulness. Once you have really powerful mindfulness, it changes a little bit, but certainly until that point, and then it becomes really, really important. So do what it takes. Don't forget this one. It's very easy to forget these very basic instructions of the Buddha, and I'm sometimes kind of horrified when I look around the Buddhist world. And to my mind, it seems that a lot of people in the Buddhist world, they forget the very first teaching of the Buddha. Middle way, don't torture yourself, they forget that straight away. And then they kind of experience too much pain. They go on a meditation retreat, or they become a monastic, and they last for a year or two, and then they kind of disrobe. It's too difficult, can't do it, too much pain, too uncomfortable. And that then becomes a very, very problematic in your whole path as a meditator or as a Buddhist monastic. So this matters, and I think there is something almost inherent in the human mind that tends to think that pain is good. I don't know about you, if any one of you thinks that pain is good, but it seems to be very common in the human mind. And I was always very surprised to see that even in the suttas, the Buddha, and this is particularly in the Bodhiraja Kumara Sutta, Majjhima Nikaya number 85, and this is where the Buddha has a conversation with Bodhiraja Kumara, Prince Bodhi, and Prince Bodhi says to the Buddha that happiness is to be gained through pain. This is what the prince says, right? Why does the prince say that to the Buddha? Well, it must be because in that society, this was a common idea. So he would have picked that up from the society around him, maybe from the Jains, maybe from the Brahmanical teachers who also taught this kind of teaching. So this seems to have been very prevalent. And we know it was very prevalent at the time of the Buddha. And even the Buddha, before his awakening, when he was a bodhisattva, the Buddha to be, practiced in that way. And so Buddha replies to Bodhiraja Kumara, and he says to him, that is what I too thought before my awakening, that pain is the pathway to happiness. By experiencing pain, you become happy. So the Buddha to be, the bodhisattva, obviously had a wrong view, before he started out on this path. He understood the practice wrongly. And then he says, no, it is not by pain that you achieve happiness. It's by practicing the Noble Eightfold Path. And of course, the Noble Eightfold Path is all about achieving various stages of happiness and satisfaction on the, in the practice. And so actually, it is more right to say, it is by happiness that you achieve happiness. You just have to know what kind of happiness. You have to define the happiness in the right way. And once you do that, you can say that it is by happiness that actually you attain happiness. And so this is very powerful because it is counter to how the human mind often works. The human mind says pain is good. And I think the reason why we say that is because the ordinary pleasures that we go through the body, well, obviously they are problematic. And so we think because they are problematic, the kama chanda, because we think that is problematic, we think that by having pain in the body, we are countering that kama chanda. It's like we are using pain to overcome happiness, and then we can kind of move forwards. But that is not how it works, says the Buddha. Because if you have pain in the body, instead of countering the pleasures of the body, what you are doing instead, you are still preoccupied with the body. Now it is like the negative preoccupation. Now you want to get rid of the pain. Previously you wanted to pursue happiness. And so either way, you have a body problem. And that body problem is some kind of attachment to the body, some kind of desire relating to the body. So the middle way is where the body kind of disappears, where the body becomes insignificant. And then that is the first kind of letting go we should do on this path, overcoming the problem of the body. So again, that means being at ease when you meditate, finding a comfortable posture for yourself. It means changing your posture if you have to during meditation. If it gets really uncomfortable, please change your posture. It's the only sensible thing to do after a while. And then I think you are roughly on the right track. Once your meditation starts to work, it won't be a problem anymore, because the deeper your meditation is, the more kind of the body just fades out anyway. It becomes irrelevant, so after a while it's fine. But in the beginning especially, it is very important to get these things right. So this is a kind of letting go, right? Where the body sort of just kind of fades away into the background in this way. The second kind of letting go that you want to do in your meditation, once you have settled down, you find a good posture for yourself, you kind of allow the world to fade away a little bit, you sit, you wait. The second thing is always to feel the content of your mind, understand what is happening inside of you right now. Do you have any defilements? Are you feeling at ease? Are you feeling comfortable mentally? And what you will find is that sometimes there may be some defilements in the mind that are really troubling you. And if the defilements are very strong, don't even try to meditate. Overcome the defilements first of all. Especially defilements like ill will. Maybe someone has kind of done something silly or whatever happens, or of course if there's some kind of strong desire, for example, pain in the body or whatever, always ensure that you overcome those defilements first of all. And there are many different ways of doing that, and I'm sure you know some of the famous ways that you find in the suttas. We're going to have a look at the Agata Pativinya Sutta later on, a very famous sutta in the Anguttara Fives, which talks about how to overcome ill will and resentment in the practice. But whatever it takes, if you have to get up and do some walking meditation, if you have to go back and just kind of reflect a little bit and have a cup of tea, or whatever it is, do what it takes to kind of overcome those defilements. Because if they are too strong, it's often very unproductive to sit down and try to meditate with those kind of things in the mind. And then when you feel reasonably peaceful, if there are some small defilements, and of course there are always some small defilements going on, it is not really a problem. But the overcoming those big ones actually matters quite a lot. Overcoming the kama chanda, the ordinary desires of the world, you do it by being comfortable. And if you have some other things, whatever it might be going on in your mind, then do some of those contemplations that you have to do to overcome those things. Or do some walking meditation, or just take a break and just wait. Sometimes you just have to wait, and it kind of disappears by itself after a while if you just wait in the right way. So this is an important part of the idea of letting go, understanding the things that you cannot take with you. So start off finding the right posture, letting go of the unskillful, the akusala, vitaka of the mind. And when you do that, then you're heading in the right direction. So then you are kind of happily sitting there, because now you are kind of at least on the right track, roughly. And then, of course, there are many more things that you have to let go of in this practice. And one of the things that you have to let go of is all the sounds outside of you. It is very easy to get disturbed by sounds. And you have probably noticed this. Sometimes you can even become quite peaceful, and still the sounds may actually be disturbing. And sometimes we make it worse by getting upset about sounds, right? We get upset because we think that the person is making a noise or whatever, and that upset then causes all kinds of repercussions in the mind that are far worse than the original sound. I don't know if you have heard, there's a beautiful saying that Ajahn Brahm always quotes. Ajahn Brahm says it comes from Ajahn Chah. Ajahn Chah was Ajahn Brahm's teacher, very famous meditation master in Thailand in the 20th century. And Ajahn Chah had this beautiful idea that it is not the sound that disturbs you, but you that disturb the sound. You disturb the sound. The sound doesn't disturb you. It's a beautiful way of thinking about it. Because if you think about it like that, you realize the sound is only there for one moment. The sound arises and it passes away again. And if you just let it flow, if you don't attach to it, if you don't get upset about it, it just goes through you, and there's no resistance inside of you that somehow resists that sound or makes a problem of that sound. And if you don't resist in that way, and you just allow the sound to go, then you are not making any problem out of it. You are not disturbing the sound, so to speak. And this is a beautiful way of thinking about it. And when we are in an environment like this, there is bound to be there's going to be a bit of sound. You can hear the cars outside. Sometimes you can hear the fans in the ceiling. Maybe you can hear the birds maybe a little bit, or whatever it is. I haven't listened so carefully to the birds yet. Whatever it is, that sounds are around us. It becomes kind of easy to deal with that. And there's one particular sound that is more difficult to let go of than any other sound. And that sound, which is really hard to let go of, is the sound of the people around you. That is the most difficult one. Because if people around you make a noise, it is very easy to get upset with the people around you. Has that happened to anyone before? It would be a miracle if it hadn't happened before to somebody. This is just how it works, right? Why are they not sensitive? Why aren't they more careful? They are in the group. They should know, right? They should understand this is the wrong time to make this kind of sound or that kind of sound. I'm sure everyone here has had that kind of feeling here. And so how do we deal with that? This becomes very important, because when we are so many people together, there's always going to be at least a few people who are a little bit different from everyone else, who perceive the retreat in a different way, who think in a different way, and so they're going to make noises that we normally think is inappropriate. And the right way to think about this is to remember that people also are just natural phenomena. The reason why people do the wrong thing is not because they want to do the wrong thing. It's not because they know that they are noisy, but they don't care. That's not really what it is. The reason why people sometimes don't play by the same rules as everyone else is because their conditioning is different, because their background is different, because they had different parents, because they had different teachers in this life, because their conditioning in the past life. And when all of this conditioning from the past come together, then they behave in this way. And very often they don't have any choice. They don't understand any different way of doing things. They are compelled, they are forced by these forces of nature that make them act in certain ways, that then sometimes causes upset in the people around them. So the right way to think about people in the world is to remember that people in the world are no different from the wind in the trees. People are just like the wind in the trees. When you hear the wind in the trees, do you get upset? Probably not very upset, right? Because it's just the wind. How can you get upset with the wind in the trees? It doesn't make any sense. But if you remember that people too are just like the wind in the trees, they are just phenomena arising on the world through cause and conditions. How can I be upset with other people? It doesn't make any sense. They are just acting out their causes. They're acting out their past. They're acting out their conditioning. They're acting out their habits. They're acting out their personality. That personality has been formed in a certain way, and there's very little they can do about that. And then, instead of getting upset with how other people are, actually, you start to have compassion for them instead. You have karuna. You have positive feelings, because you know that they are trapped in a certain way of being in their life. And it's very painful to be trapped in a way, especially if that way leads to other people getting upset, if that way leads to having all sorts of defilements and doing all kinds of bad things. It is very painful and very difficult. So you change from being fault-finding, from having difficulties, and straight away you have compassion instead. So please always have compassion for everyone here, everyone on this retreat. Everyone in the world is worthy of compassion. Everyone, even the worst people, are worthy of compassion. Why? Because they don't understand what they're doing here. So this is the idea of dealing with sounds, which is often can be very problematic on a meditation retreat. They are just phenomena. Allow them to pass through you. Don't attach to them. Don't make a problem out of them, because that is where the sound really becomes a problem. So that is the idea of letting go of the sounds in the world, the sounds around us. Then another really big thing that we have to drop in meditation that is very problematic very often. You can see I'm going here to deeper and deeper things as we move along. Another very important one is the idea of the thinking mind. This is one of those perennial questions you get always when you teach meditation, is how do you drop the thinking mind? How do I stop thinking? Very, very common, especially very common in the world when there's a lot of pressure, you have to work really hard, especially as a lay person in the world. You kind of have to meet deadlines and you have to do all of these kind of things, sometimes for monastics as well. Because of this, there's a pressure, but that pressure makes you think more. It drives the mind. I have to remember this, I have to remember that. I have to kind of get things done for the deadline, all of these kind of things. And so one of the things that we really need to understand is how to overcome the thinking mind. And this also has to do with the idea of letting go of things. Now, one of the very important things to understand about the thinking mind is that thinking is not something that happens to you. Thinking is something that you actually do. It comes from you. It comes from a desire inside of you. It comes from an intention inside of you. It comes from an activity within you that actually wants to think. That is really a kind of very important part of the problem. And so it is because you want to think, that is why you do these things. So a very important part of overcoming the thinking is to understand how insubstantial it is, how uninteresting it very often is, how very often the thinking just goes round and round in the loop, thinking about the same thing again and again and again, thinking that eventually it's going to get you somewhere, Maybe now, I've thought about this 1,000 times. Maybe when I think about the 1,001st time, it will work. I will find a solution. This is kind of how we work, right? It's like, and this is kind of humanity for you, or animals or whatever. We do the same thing again and again and again, even though we know that it doesn't work. And the reason we do that is basically just because of the habits of the mind. We're habituated to do things in a certain way, and so we can't really step back and allow it all to fade away and to let go of it. We just do things again and again and again. So one of the beautiful things to do in your meditation practice as you start to become peaceful is to get more perspective on your thinking mind. Start to see it for what it is. The reason why we think the thinking is so important, one of the reasons, is because the thoughts feel like my thoughts. I am thinking this thought, and because I am thinking this thought, it is important. Because everything that is yours is important to you. So you identify with these thoughts. And especially, perhaps, if it is a very creative thought, it is very interesting. Maybe afterwards we're going to come into the suttas. We're going to listen to the Anapanasati Sutta later on today. And sometimes, as you are going through the sutta, you understand something you haven't understood before. I'm sure every one of you who is interested in the suttas will know that. Sometimes you think, wow, that is really interesting. Now I understand what is going on. And that idea then becomes your thought, and then you attach to it because it is your thought. And then instead of kind of moving on to the next sutta, you kind of cling on to that sutta and you teach that insight for the next 10 years. And you keep on kind of doing the same thing saying the same thing for 10 years or 20 years if you have been teaching for a long time like me. And you kind of go saying the same thing again and again and again and you get trapped by those thoughts and you think them in meditation. And especially if it is something creative that you very much identify with your activity, your creation. So in meditation, instead of identifying with the thoughts, instead of thinking that the thoughts are yours, start instead to identify with the knowing instead, the awareness that sees the arising of thoughts, the awareness that sees the passing away of thoughts. It is as if you are standing back and just observing everything in the world. First of all, you observe the sounds outside like I did before. The sounds outside, they arise, they pass away. They have nothing to do with you. They're not really yours. And that is quite easy to understand. Yeah? Even if it is people around you, we can do that quite easily. But then you take the same idea with the sound and take it into your inner mind, the sounds inside of you. And the sounds inside of you are like the thinking mind. And you stand back from that thinking mind and you see more and more the thoughts arising and the thoughts passing away. They become objects in your mind. They become things that you start to understand and nothing really to do with you. They arise because of cause and conditions. Some of those cause and conditions are your habits from the past. Some of those cause and conditions are whatever we are doing in the present. And when all of those things come together, then the thinking arises. And it can be very hard. And very often why it is hard to see this, and I think everyone sometimes gets trapped by the idea that it is your thinking mind. The reason why it is hard is because it is often your intention, your desire, your will to think that particular thought. And if you think, I want to think this thought, of course, that very idea that you are doing it, it is coming from you within, that makes it also your thought. So part of this is also to understand that a lot of that doing activity, that intention to think, that itself is often not really coming from you. Yeah? These are cause and conditions coming from the past. And very often you can see that precisely because your thinking goes in circles around and around and around. It's obvious that this is about habits and about all of these kind of things. And you start to understand that even your intentions that drive this thinking process, all of this to a large extent is really out of control. It is happening to you. It is not really so much you doing it. And the more you can see it as it happening to you, the more you can stand back and be the observer that kind of watches the whole show but doesn't really buy into it, the more you can let go of that thinking mind. So this is one way of understanding about the thinking mind, letting go of the problem that arises in this way. Another very important way of letting go of the thinking mind is to find something that is more interesting than the thinking mind. And of course, what is more interesting than the thinking mind is the enjoyment of the meditation. If you enjoy just the peace, or maybe you're having some joy and happiness arising in meditation, when these things start to happen, then that is preferable to thinking, then the thinking tends to die away. So it's kind of these things coming together. And then gradually you overcome this. And of course also you have in the suttas, when we come to the Anapanasati sutta, the Buddha also says that the Anapanasati is done to overcome thinking as well. So just by watching the breath, that is also overcoming the thinking mind. Vitaka paricheda or upacheda, something I think it's called in the suttas when we talk about overcoming the thinking mind. So these are some of the ideas of overcoming thinking in your meditation, allowing this whole thing to kind of gradually fade away in this particular way. So already, if you can do this much, even a little bit, you're already doing really, really well in your meditation. You can see why this is the case. And if you're having success, at least to some extent, even by doing this much, your mindfulness will already be quite strong here. Your awareness will be quite present, because the thinking mind is dying down, and all of these other factors are coming into place, and you will kind of have a certain degree of sati already arising here. And so once that sati has arisen in this way, then you can come back to this idea that Ajahn Brahm was talking about, that you don't actually have to do anything in your meditation. Once you come to mindfulness, all you have to do is sit longer. And as you sit longer, because your mindfulness is already strong, that mindfulness will enable the mind to overcome any further problems. So you just sit and you wait. And you have this idea that Ajahn Brahm sometimes talks about, the Teflon mind. The Teflon mind is the mind that doesn't attach to anything that is happening inside or outside. It just observes. It is just aware. You identify fully with the awareness and not with the things that are going on there. And so things pass and they pass away. They arise and pass away. Yeah? And as they arise and pass away, they don't have any imprint on your mind. They don't leave a residue in your mind that causes problems for you. All you do is you just observe. And if you are able to do this, if you have a powerful mindfulness in this way, what you will find is that gradually things become more and more peaceful. More and more things just fall away. More and more things become kind of irrelevant. And peace gradually happens all by itself. All you have to do is to be mindful. All you have to do is to be aware. All you have to do is carry on with the practice. And there is like an automatic progression. Any remaining tinamidda, tiredness and lethargy, any remaining restlessness, any remaining thinking, any remaining desires you may have, all of that, you're just observing it. And through the power of observation, the power of the mindfulness, all of these things gradually just go away, disappear, go down and down and down, until eventually, of course, you start to get into some very deep meditation. So this is kind of the idea of establishing mindfulness first of all, letting go of all of these problematic phenomena. Then when you let go of them, mindfulness arises, then awareness looks after the rest of the journey. But sometimes this is not enough. A very important ingredient in all of this, and this is one of the things I mentioned at the very beginning, a very important ingredient is the idea of enjoying the practice. If you don't enjoy what you're doing, you will not be able to sustain the mindfulness. So start from the very beginning, start to look for the enjoyable part of meditation, look for the kind of delightful aspects of meditation, and those delightful aspects can take many forms. One of the forms of delight is sometimes just being able to not having anything to do, not rushing around in our lives, not having all of these duties that we have to do, and just feeling how delightful it is just to be able to sit back and to be peaceful. Wow, nothing to do. What a wonderful thing that is. Gee, I've been doing so much, I've been doing too many things. Why have I been doing so many things? Well, what a wonderful thing it is to be able to be here and just chillax and just enjoy yourself, not doing anything. Make sure you translate chillax properly, Venerable Dhammita. I'm not sure what the Sinhala term for chillax is, but anyway, I'm sure you can find a suitable one. So you just enjoy the peace. You enjoy the idea of being still and peaceful, not having anything to do, and you feel kind of the idea of why samatha, why calming down, why this is actually a delightful thing in the world. And it's surprising in the modern world there are many people who don't know how to relax. They're always on their mobile phones, and they're always kind of doing things, always very busy. And because they are so busy, it is actually very difficult to become peaceful. And when you sit down, they find it's troublesome. It is painful to try to be peaceful because the mind always wants to do. So it's very important to understand the power and the beauty of peace. It is important to understand why the doing mind actually is a mind that is painful. And the more you calm down the sankharas of the mind, sabba sankhara samatha, one of the sankharas here is a sankhara of the will, the doing activity of the mind. Why this is so important? Because you understand the pain, the problem of this activity of the mind all the time. So enjoy the thing, a meditation in this way. The second aspect to enjoy is to start to enjoy the meditation also in the deeper way, giving rise to some beautiful qualities within. Yeah? And one of the things that kind of occurs to me when I come here, what a beautiful place this is. Yeah, look at this beautiful hall. It's really delightful to come in here. It is a little bit of sense pleasure perhaps, but I think very harmless kind of sense pleasure. Enjoying the beautiful greenery. It is, when you come from Australia, you have no idea how beautiful it is to see green. Australia, very brown. Yeah, it's just like, I don't see it anymore now because I'm so used to Australia, especially Perth. But in the summertime in Australia, it's like brown and grey is the color. Okay, if you look into the trees, there's still a little bit of green, but everything otherwise is brown. And then I come here and I think, wow, this is what it could look like. So we just enjoy the environment. Yeah, this is a very simple way of having a bit of pamudja, a bit of gladness in your practice. Take gladness wherever you can find it. The second way of having gladness, and I think this is a very important part of the meditation, is to have gladness because of your fellow people on this retreat. Yeah, the fellow, having all of these wonderful monastics here, half nuns, half monks, and then all our fellow upasakas and upasikas, everyone coming together, the fourfold assembly. Isn't that wonderful? We can all come together and practice like this. And there's only one thing you can be absolutely sure about with this fourfold assembly. Everyone here is a good person. Everyone here has come on this retreat. Why? Because they have a good intention. No one would come on a retreat like this unless they had the right intention, unless they had a good heart. What a wonderful thing it is to have kalyana mittas like this. Yeah, what a marvelous thing it is that we have people like this in the world who can support us, who can work together with us in the right way. And when we have a kalyana mittas like this is what makes the path possible. So just close your eyes sometimes and think how fortunate you are to live in the world where such kalyana mittas still exist. And in fact, there is a sutta in the Anguttara Nikaya 11th that talks about the recollection of your kalyana mittas. Very often we talk about the Buddhanusati or Sanghanusati, but sometimes that is a bit abstract. We don't really know exactly how to do that. But your kalyana mittas is a very tangible thing because they are around you. And of course, the Buddha and the Sangha is included in that anyway, right? The Buddha is number one kalyana mitta, if you like. But also just the kalyana mittas around you. The idea that we have a wonderful community, that we have beautiful people who work with us. And what a wonderful thing it is to be able to be part of such a community. And when you think like that, it's almost impossible not to feel a bit of joy, yeah? Because it actually is a wonderful opportunity. So have that sense of kalyanamitta appreciation of the people around you. I'm just going to say a few simple ways in which you can have more sense of joy in the practice. Another way of having a sense of joy, which I think is very important, is to have a sense of gratitude. Yeah, a sense that feeling that you are so fortunate to be able to be here. Sometimes I think about myself. I think, what am I doing here? I was born in Norway. Now I am sort of Australian because I got my Australian passport now. I'm not sure what I am. I'm probably schizophrenic now. Half Norwegian, half Australian, a little bit Sri Lankan, a little bit whatever. They're all kind of mixed up. Maybe I was probably in the past life, I probably was Sri Lankan actually. You think that's true? I think it might be true. Because I think I was very likely a Buddhist monk or Buddhist nun maybe in the past life. So maybe it was in Sri Lanka, maybe it was in, I don't know, Thailand. I have no idea. But anyway, how did I get up here? How did I get into this situation? Yeah, to become a Buddhist monk. How did I get this opportunity to practice the best spiritual teaching in the world? How did I get to have the most important spiritual genius in human history, the Buddha, as my teacher? Wow, I should have so much gratitude. I was born in the cold and snow in Norway. There was zero Buddhists. There was zero Buddhists. There was nothing. It was like a spiritual desert. Spiritual desert is bad, right? And then somehow I came to Buddhism. Somehow I ended up like this. And now I have everyone here as my Kalyanamitas. Wow, I should be so grateful for this, for having this opportunity. It is not at all a given. It is not at all a given I will have this in the future. How long am I going to live? When will I die? Where will I get reborn in my next life? I should have so much gratitude for being able to be here with everyone today. We don't know the cause and conditions that have brought us together here now. Those causes and conditions are often very fragile. We don't know how long it will last. This is why you should have gratitude for being in the presence here of the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha in this way, being able to practice with your Kalyanamitas and see how fortunate you are to be in this particular situation. So these are some of the ways of being able to develop a sense of contentment, a sense of peace, a sense of enjoyment with what you're doing. And when you bring this into your meditation, when you add that to the idea of mindfulness, then the present moment becomes a happy moment. When the present moment is a happy moment, it is easy to be mindful. Why? Because you want to be here. When you feel good about being here, mindfulness is easy. If you don't feel good about being here, mindfulness is going to be hard. You're going to fall into sloth and torpor, you're going to fall into thinking, you're going to fall into all of these other kind of things. So, just to summarize for you very briefly, time is up already, time often goes very, very fast. This is the first talk, like that is going to be the last talk. Just warning you. I know what these things are like, so just warning you. But just to briefly summarize, let go. Allow yourself to be here. Just relax. Think of yourself as just really relaxing, as if there's nothing to do in the whole world. Just let go of everything. Be comfortable, be at ease. Let go of all of the problems in life. Understand what is really important in life. What is really important in life is the spiritual path. If you really understand that the spiritual path is what matters, everything else becomes irrelevant. And that is one of those powerful things. And when everything else is irrelevant, when the world outside doesn't matter because it doesn't take you anywhere, it is not important, then the mindfulness arises. You let go of the world. And when the mindfulness arises, then you can just stay in the present, enjoy the present, and allow the meditation to happen by itself. So, that is just a brief introduction to all of you. And this sets the stage, it sets the background for the Anapanasati Sutta, which we will have a look at when we come back again this afternoon. So just starting out, so please enjoy yourself. All you need to do is give me one promise that you will enjoy yourself on this retreat. Don't practice that beautiful middle way. And if you can do that, then I think we can all have a very nice time together on this retreat here. So that is it for now, so we'll see you again later on.